I was very fortunate to launch my career at Stanford University, which was a very exciting place where I picked up a skill set related to internet technology very early on, because Stanford was at the frontiers of that sort of work. And I was asked to go to Washington in 1986 to represent American research universities in advocating for internet technology. I think that we were quite successful with that, as everyone knows. And then when I finished that work, I was asked to help a group of universities establish an advanced high-performance network for using internet technology. It's now called, that consortium is called INTERNET2, and I was the startup executive for that effort. And then following that, I was one of the people who was instrumentally involved in forming ICANN, and after John Postel's very unfortunate death, I became the first CEO of ICANN. When I got to Washington to organize the Internet Networking Office for the association, which was called EDUCOM, it became apparent that we needed allies. And for instance, as an example of collaboration that was effective, I became, and the group of networking leaders from campuses that I was a part of, became part of something called the High Performance Computing Coalition. And this was an industry academic partnership that essentially advocated for the government to take a major role in making the internet technology and the network itself part of American advanced research. And I think we were very successful. We got the federal government to put $500 million a year into supporting the technology by the late 90s, by the late 80s. One of the early highlights was an opportunity to give testimony to the U.S. Congress Science Committee on the subject of high-performance networks for research and education. And that testimony in 1986 was instrumental in launching the Congress on a path that led to the High Performance Computing Act of 1991, which was the first federal legislation that supported direct use of the internet within the government. There was a period in the middle 1990s when the National Science Foundation had decided that it had nurtured the networking on campuses sufficiently that it could withdraw it and redeploy its funding support. So the universities were faced a crisis as to who was going to organize and drive high-performance networking for American universities. So I was part of a relatively small group of people who put together what became the plan and the structure for INTERNET2, which has been extremely successful in fact creating a high-performance fabric and structure for research and teaching in American universities. My best recollections of my career have been with the years where I worked to catalyze collaborations. It was, of course, a considerable challenge because university people and internet people like to argue a lot with each other, and some days you don't think that anybody's made any forward progress at all. So when we would have a bunch of arguments and debates and dialogue, I felt that my ability to try to get people to some sort of bottom line and then move on was both helpful to the internet and helpful to universities and a source of satisfaction to me.